I've been wanting to talk about ring pull-ups for a while now because they can't keep flying under the radar like this. They build insane width and to a higher degree than other variations, thickness. And since they are much easier on the joints as well, they fix one of the biggest problems with regular pull-ups. Because in regular pull-ups, your hands are locked in place as soon as you grab the bar. This prevents your wrists from moving and rotating. And once your wrists are limited, your entire arm is also restricted. So you're essentially forced into a fixed movement pattern. This often creates a slight mismatch between how your arms want to move and how the bar forces them to move. For example, in the top position, your arms naturally want to rotate inwards. But because they can't, twisting forces and pressure build up in the joints, especially in the elbows. Even with good technique, it's pretty common to experience irritation and in some cases inflammation. In ring pull-ups, the biggest difference is how the equipment adapts to your body, not the other way around. Rings can freely move into what feels comfortable and efficient. So instead of staying pronated, you can fluently switch into a more neutral or even supinated position. These adjustments based on feel and intuition result in less stress on the joints and for many no more nagging elbow pain. But the increased mobility is not just safer, it's insanely effective for building muscle. Because the body automatically recruits a deeper activation in order to stabilize the joints. This does make ring pull-ups harder to control, but it also gives you a bigger reward if you're willing to slow down the movement and consciously keep the tension. For example, in the top position, it can result in a deeper, more powerful contraction. That's because your shoulder blades have more freedom to move and come together naturally. And because your elbows also have increased mobility, they can stay even closer to the body to help guide that activation. This is one of the biggest differences I personally feel in ring pull-ups. Just how much easier it is to engage the back muscles by rotating your elbows inwards towards the top. Especially since there's no bar to stop you in your path. Normally, you'd eventually have to lean away from the bar, move the elbows in front and lose the retraction. But in ring pull-ups, your chest can rise higher, your elbows can move further back, and you can continue squeezing to get the full contraction. This helps target the midback, like the lower traps and rhomboids, to a higher degree than other pull-up variations. Which is further true because these muscles also help stabilize the shoulder blades and need to recruit more fibers given the instability. But that's not all. In the bottom position, ring pull-ups have an advantage as well. Since the lats attach along the inside of the arm, starting from a supinated position is twisting the insertion point and leads to a slightly deeper stretch when hanging freely. With rings, you're free to utilize this and start supinated before rotating into a more classic pull-up. This does involve a big rotation each rep, and if you prefer to stay pronated, you could also just start narrow, which mechanically is stronger in the bottom, and then go wider as you continue pulling, which is stronger in the top. There are different options depending on what you prefer and what feels good. For example, I like to start pronated and then in the very top rotate fully supinated. And working the angles is amazing for hypertrophy, but the lack of a more consistent movement pattern can also be frustrating. In comparison, regular pull-ups are stable, the range is decided by your width, and when your chin clears the bar, that's a clear indication marking the end of the rep. This makes them better suited for comparing and tracking performance, like in competitions and strength testing, especially since it's the most popular pull-up. So even though ring pull-ups check every box when it comes to hypertrophy and health, it's less standardized from a performance perspective. And if you like to train and perfect a very specific movement pattern, then the added mobility can actually be a downside as well. However, I will say that you can sort of accommodate this by attaching the rings right below the bar. This functions as a middle way that still gives you the increased wrist rotation, but within a more fixed range of motion. I've also seen Peter, who is a calisthenics world champion, use bands in the top for a more definitive end range. These are options if you like to follow a strength progression, gradually add weight, and work at lower rep ranges. Even with a performance focus, you can still rely on ring pull-ups as your primary way of building mass. But in my opinion, this isn't necessarily taking advantage of what makes them special. They work incredibly well during controlled reps and also as a supporting exercise, using body weight and lighter weight and maybe with higher reps as well. This is a great way to get in some quality volume without fatiguing too much and with a low risk of injury. I personally train bar pull-ups as my main lift and then use ring pull-ups as an accessory. But if I didn't compete and went entirely for feel over performance, I'd probably make ring pull-ups my primary pulling variation. That's how good they are. So if you've been dealing with elbow pain, you want a better squeeze, or you just want to train smarter, ring pull-ups may deserve a spot in your program. And if you need a good pair of rings, my sponsors at Donation have a high quality option. You can use my code JACOB10 for 10% off. I put the link in the description. That was it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new, and I will see you in the next one.